Contrary to what you might see me walking around with on my badge, my name is not PG, it is PJ. This will not be a PG talk. Chances are I'm going to have a few swear words, but welcome to the talk. I'm glad you stuck around. Real quick, I work at a company called Logs.io. It is not Logs.io, it is Logs.io. We're Elk Stack as a service, and we work with startups, enterprise customers, cognitive insights, AI on the back end to find out what's going wrong and how to help. It's pretty cool. That's not what I'm here to talk about. Let's talk about my favorite subject, which is, of course, me. So I'm a developer advocate at Logs. So if you know what a developer evangelist is, it's kind of the same idea. But I like to talk a little bit about the fact that, you know, I'm lucky. I get to travel the world. I get to talk to people about technology and coding and what's going on in the world in general. I'm also a hockey coach. That picture is outdated. Every one of those kids is now way taller than I am. I'm a musician. I've been playing drums since I was 6 years old. And I'm a dad who occasionally lets his kids speak at, keynote at large-scale conferences. That's my daughter at 11. She keynoted RubyConf. I've never keynoted RubyConf. I just sat there while she was talking. That was the laser pointer. Also, I run a thing on the side called Prompt. Prompt is about mental health in tech. Our job is to get speakers on stage to end the stigma and start the conversations about issues in mental health in tech. If you'd like to learn more, the URL is right there, and feel free to come talk to me at any point. I love talking about this subject. If you have a meetup, a conference, some sort of event where you'd like someone to talk about mental health specifically related to tech, get in touch, and I will definitely help you out. So let's get to the talk. What does this talk about? So we're human beings. I'm pretty sure we're all human beings. We all have conceptions and preconceived notions of things. A lot of it depends on, where you came from, what code community you started in. Did you start at a boot camp? Did you go to university? Are you self-taught? Do you focus on one language or many languages? So we're going to talk a little bit about those misconceptions and how they work. There's also ideas about how community works within tech, which I always find interesting. I've been working with meetups all over the world for years, getting them started, helping them figure out why attendance went down, how to get it back up, things like that. Simple things like don't just buy pizza. But there's also concepts that we have, especially those of us who are in the open source community, about enterprise developers and vice versa. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, if you saw the title, you may have thought it was going to be something more along this, Sasquatch, Yetis, Bigfoot, crocodiles in the sewer system, the Loch Ness Monster. We're not actually going to talk about urban legends. I am more than happy to have that conversation not on this stage. Because of the research I did for this, I actually learned a lot about urban legends because, sometimes you go in that Wikipedia hole and you just find that you've actually ruined an entire day's work because you read everything on Wikipedia about fake Loch Ness Monster sightings. This is the way life goes. So let's talk about the urban legends in tech specifically. So we'll start with Ruby. Ruby's one of my favorite languages. How many people have coded in Ruby before? All right, you like it? Oh, this guy doesn't like it. Please remove your Star Wars shirt. We're no longer friends. So I started with Ruby, and I love Ruby. Ruby's great. But it does kind of have this idea that it's for hipster, super opinionated people who they have this voice and they just want to be heard constantly. And why is that? Because Rails. Ruby is considered magical. I used to actually work for a guy who thought that because we used Ruby on Rails, we basically didn't do anything all day. We would just wait to the end of the day and hit deploy and yes, we're done. Look, everything's great. We scaffolded everything because that's how websites work. But it doesn't help that Rails is also specifically led by a very vociferous young man who has no problem sharing his opinion at all times about anything from US politics, the economy, and cars. And everyone assumes, well, he's got opinions on everything. He must have opinions on us. I've met David. He's a very nice guy at heart. Just, on Twitter, some people get a little flagrant. So the key myth to bust here is that Ruby is not Rails. It's not the same thing. There's so many other frameworks, and there's so many other things that people do with Ruby that have nothing to do with the web at all in reality. Things like Ruby Motion. And the frameworks that people use, Sinatra 2 just came out. It was a big announcement last week, 2 weeks ago. I've been traveling for a while, so I've lost track of time. I actually tried to come here yesterday to speak, but apparently they weren't open yet. But yeah, so Ruby has so much more to it. There's so much more of an ecosystem, and yet people still think, oh, it's this hipster language. It's not useful. So I want you to kind of take this in. I don't know if everybody can see it. There's so many of you. Feel free to move forward. But yeah, the guy's like, I don't mean to brag, but I built the app that shows where to find single source espresso in Soma, which if you don't know San Francisco, that means south of Market, which is kind of a crappy neighborhood, but very expensive to live in. And the other guy says, oh, impressive, I built the app that is keeping this plane in the air. So I don't want to give the wrong impression. Ruby developers are not all dudes wearing hats with beards, wearing t-shirts, regardless of the fact that I am a Ruby developer and I am wearing a hat and I do have a beard and I only wear t-shirts. Just want to say that's not all of us. But you can see, like, he's also making an app that's pretty much useless. It seems like he's doing something here that's completely superfluous. There's no need for it. And the other gentleman is like, yeah, that's cool, Ruby guy. Why don't you make something that works? And this isn't like an old idea. This is something that perpetuates. This is actually a tweet from just a few weeks ago that a friend of mine sent. His name has been redacted for, his own safety. But, it kind of brings the point home that people still to this day think Ruby is not as worthwhile a language as other languages. Even though it is mature, it is well built, it is stable. It's a little slow moving now because it is so mature and there are so many features to add and bugs to fix. But it still exists. And it's strong. There's tons of companies that use Ruby on a daily basis. I don't think anyone would say Groupon was a small company. Groupon didn't do anything that really mattered. They didn't build anything significant. They did. They changed the way people looked at buying things. They changed the way people used coupons. At Logs.io, we use Ruby. It's not our primary development language, but we have to build tools in Ruby so that it works with other people. Urban Dictionary, I use that shit every day, because people say shit to me on Twitter and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I better find out. Then I'm usually offended. But yeah, Hulu, Zendesk, Prompt. We use Jekyll for our website because Jekyll is an awesome way. How many people use WordPress? You should start liking Ruby because Jekyll is 10 million times easier. But my point is Ruby is great. Ruby is strong. But let's talk about Ruby's supposed arch nemesis, PHP. How many people have done PHP? Yeah, I always get more hands for PHP. First, let's do away with this rumor, this idea that Ruby and PHP don't get along. They do the same thing two different ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. As developers, it's really about how we solve problems, not the tools that we use to do them. So if you are working with a customer or a client and they're like, well, we'd like to do it in PHP, good for them. If they want to do it in Ruby, good for them. If they want to do it in HTML5, that's what they want. If there's a better way to do it in another language, maybe prod them gently. But a little while ago, over the past couple of years, everything has been dead. When I originally wrote this talk, I thought about calling it Everything is Dead, Why Do We Even Bother? But I felt like that was really negative, so I went with a different title. So this is the idea. PHP is dead. People don't use it. This is a myth. This is a ridiculous myth. And why is it ridiculous? 80% of the servers, both hardcore co-locate facilities, servers sitting in closets and offices in the cloud, 80% of them are running PHP. Why? Because 80% of the web, 80% of the internet is built in PHP. And it's in little ways that you might not see right away. For example, even Rails has a PHP extension to pull in PHP code from APIs. Java does, Perl does, JavaScript does. A lot of sites there, but anything you've ever done in WordPress is all PHP. Facebook is PHP. That's probably a good 50% of the internet right there, unfortunately. So it's not dead. It's alive and it's thriving. Another myth about PHP. Oh, there's no objects. How many people believe that PHP is not an object-oriented language? I'm just raising my head as an example. Okay, so good. So you're all using modern PHP. But for some of us who used PHP maybe up to version 4, 4.3, somewhere in there, we were right about this. There weren't any object. It wasn't an object-oriented language. It was an enhanced set of HTML scripts. But after that, they were like, shit, we actually need to develop something that makes sense. So with PHP 5, and I won't say 6, and 7, they have a rich object architecture that allows you to actually code things strongly in PHP. So that's awesome. But PHP is so slow. The community doesn't move fast enough. They aren't up to date. They aren't building robots. Like in Ruby, we built robots. And in Node, of course they built robots. Flying drones all over the place with spheros and shit flying everywhere because Node is awesome. But in PHP, they don't. Well, they're slower to adopt because, again, when you have that massive glacier that you're working on with 80% of the internet depending on you, sometimes you're focused on just those parts. Slowness is also a perception. You know, as people who code, we have this perception that something is slow if it does it in X milliseconds, and we expect it to do in X minus 5 milliseconds. And we're like, oh my God, we'll lose customers. And it's like, you know, really your customers care about, you know what number? Does anyone know the number that people who use websites or apps, what they care about? The number? 4 seconds. They will wait 4 seconds. Let's wait 4 seconds right now. Let's see how long 4 seconds is right now. So start here. That's 4 seconds. That's kind of a significant amount of time. If my code took that long to compile, I'd be like, oh shit, now we have a problem. But when I'm looking at a website, I'll wait 4 seconds, and then I'll actually reload and try it again. So now we're at 8 seconds. And if you're my grandma, you'll do that at least 17 times, just clicking the button, hoping thing's gonna come up, because she's 92, she doesn't really understand the internet. So when we think of slow, we're not thinking the same things as people that are actually using our code, using our applications, using the things that we build. And that's important. So security, PHP and security. I'm gonna say, I put this in the PHP set of slides. I could have put this pretty much anywhere in the talk. So here's the thing about security. As someone who codes, your application is only as secure as you make it. If you're not building with an eye towards security, then you're gonna have problems. In the same way, I mean, this is kind of recent news, this whole thing that happened with the NHS and then all over the place and things popping up because people were using Windows XP and everybody was like, haha, because they're using Windows XP. It had nothing to do with Windows XP. It had to do with the fact that the NHS does not pay enough people to go and update the computers to have the proper patches to have blocked that thing from happening, that ransomware attack. They did not move fast enough because to them, computer security is secondary. They're more concerned with things like saving lives and giving people medications and things like that, which is respectable. IT isn't a thought to them. There's not much you can do about that. But when I had someone tell me, oh, I don't use PHP because it's not secure, it's like, well, you can make it secure, code it secure. Or, you know, I don't like Ruby, there's too many possibilities of like DDoS and cross-site scripting. It's like, no, you build it so that you're not worrying about that. You write your tests so that they're ready. You build your code so that it's ready. You deploy your application so that it's ready. Security is something you have to keep an eye on. And I'm not here to, you know, propagate security, but my point is any language, doesn't matter what language, if you're not coding with an eye towards security or you don't have a team, if you work in a large organization, a team who's looking at it and saying, okay, I can see the security vulnerabilities, let's code so that we don't have to worry about these, then it doesn't matter what language you're working in, you're screwed. Java, dead. Of course Java is dead, we know that. It powers some of the biggest applications around the world, but nonetheless, it's dead. So you remember the image of that guy on the plane? The guy who did I coded the stuff that keeps this plane in the air? He did it with Java. Of course he did it with Java. Super powerful. Most airlines use Java. Most space shuttles used Java before they were retired. It's a language that has a lot of power behind it. It has a lot of interest. So to say it's dead when it's powering these huge applications, I mean, yes, it's annoying. When this little image pops up on your computer and is like, you need to download the latest Java in order to use this application, you're like, Jesus Christ, again. Why? Why is it always with the Java? But the reason for that is because so many things use it. It is that level of powerful. So Java's not dead. Python, how many people use Python? A lot of Python lovers. I like Python. I think Python's pretty cool. The myth that I've always seen about Python is that Python is for academics. Python is for science. Python isn't for fun or for web development or anything like that. And I mean, it's a little bit outdated, but people still think, oh, I don't want to do Python. It seems too mathy. Seems too difficult. Like, I just want to code simple things. I just want to make a website, you know, some HTML, some CSS, and call it a day. We've moved long past those days, folks. But Python's really cool, and I'll give you an example. I'll tell a little story here. So last year I went to RailsConf, and Spotify, a gentleman from Spotify was there. Great guy, super nice, gave a great talk. They code in Python. Python is primarily what Spotify uses, and how many Spotify users are there in the room? I kind of want to put my hands up multiple times because like we have the family pack, which is really cool. So that way my kids don't use my Spotify and I don't have to, you know, my friends don't call me going, oh, you're listening to Taylor Swift? Nice. And it's like, oh, shit. But But yeah, Python is really amazing. And at Spotify, they find the power of Python to build algorithms that are really, really cool. And one of the things they did was they call it boiling the frog. And it's a little API. I think it's available publicly. And what Boil the Frog does is, and I'll use Taylor Swift as an example, is you say, all right, I hate Taylor Swift, but I fucking love metal. I love metal. I love Amon Amarth, which is a Viking metal band out of Scandinavia. They are really good. I saw them once. I thought they were going to murder me, but it was okay. It worked out in the end. And you would think there's no way these two bands have anything in common. Taylor Swift and Amon Amarth? No way. This gentleman built a script in Python, really neat script. And what it does is you get 10 songs. So Taylor Swift song, what the hell did she sing? Shake It Off? Then 10 songs in between that, and then Amon Amarth's pillaging the village or something like that. And in those 10 songs, it'll go from Taylor Swift to something a little bit harder, something a little bit more with guitars, something with less drum machines. And through those 10 songs, suddenly you're like, oh, 10 songs later, I understand how he got between these two things. Absolutely amazing. That's not math. There's math behind it, but he didn't do it because of the math or the scientific rigor that was going to come out of it. He did it because it was fun. Linux, not a programming language. But I felt like this was important. This is the year of the Linux desktop, am I right? No, put your hand down. It's not gonna happen. I would love for it to happen. I really would. But until there's some sort of unifying force there, it's not gonna happen. But a lot of people that I've seen, even, especially with all these MacBooks coming out and all this fun MacBook stuff that goes along with it, I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, well, we've got to get back to Linux, but Linux is so outdated and it's so horrible. I'm going to go back to the idea of being on a plane. I go on a lot of planes. Has anybody ever been on a plane that has movies? Like they're showing some movies on the plane so you're not realizing how fucking boring it is to fly all the time? Anytime I've been on a plane where they were showing movies, almost invariably on at least one of the screens within my viewing range, Tux pops up. And he pops up because Linux is running all of the movie systems on all of the major airlines. And they do that because it's lightweight, it's easy to use. All they have to do is pretty much say start and it'll reboot the system so we can all watch, that Batman versus Superman atrocity that came out last year. Because that's what you do on planes, you beat yourself to death with horrible movies. But if Linux wasn't that big a deal or didn't really do much, I highly doubt that major airlines would be having teams of people working on it so that they could provide you entertainment and other things. Perl is dead. This was an interesting thing. So a little while back in 2014, I wrote an article called Is Ruby Dead? Is Rails Dead? And I never thought that Aristotle would pick it up. I don't think that many people read my blog posts. Like, it's cool that they do, and whatever. But the fact that they actually picked up my blog post and said, is Perl dead? I mean, this guy said Ruby's dead. Maybe Perl's dead too, or is it just deader than Ruby? Which is interesting, because I think it's absolutely preposterous to think Perl is dead. It went to sleep for a long time. There were no updates, and so a lot of people were like, Perl, whatever. How many people have coded in Perl before? Have you coded in the new Perl? The one that came out Christmas of last year? Oh my God, it's awesome. And part of the reason why it's awesome is because Larry sat down and said, listen, we need to make it better, but I don't want to make it incrementally better. I want to make it massively better. I want it to be amazing. And so they took their time. And so a lot of people said, oh, well, Perl's gone the way of so many other languages like COBOL, which I actually just saw an article about how COBOL is still around, and people are panicking because there's not enough COBOL developers in the world to keep the banks running. So maybe, look into that. But Perl's not dead either. Swift. How many people code in Swift? How many people remember when Swift came out? Yeah, Swift was going to be the end-all, be-all language. This is it. This is mobile development for the future. This is it. We don't need anything else. We just need Swift. And then I saw this tweet. And let this sink in for a minute. So, Objective-C developers are now obsolete. Please treat them with respect. I looked at this, for no lie. I looked at this tweet on my phone for 20 minutes because I was so shocked. So let's put the C developers to the side just for a second and talk about the concept of being obsolete. So apparently old people are obsolete. Okay, all right. I feel like that's a little messed up because like old people, that's our goal. We all want to be old people. Like we don't want to be old people, but we also don't want to be dead people, and old people is definitely better than dead people. So let's stick with old people. But this is the kicker. Pregnant women. I'm not a biologist, but I'm gonna say this, and you can write this down, you can tweet this out if you want. PJ said that without pregnant women, we end as a species. Obviously not obsolete. Also, the fact that most of these languages are developed in Objective-C or some form of C means that C developers are not obsolete. Luckily, Swift started to get the idea with 2.0 and decided to open source it and make it a thing again, so it wasn't so bad. Anything with a JS. This is where we start getting into a little bit about worry. For a while, people thought anything with JavaScript meant that it was good. Has anyone used any of these things? I'll give you a minute just in case you're missing, that Kraken JS there, Doge JS. None of them really do anything special. You probably can't guess from their names what they do, which is pretty shitty. Nonetheless, they all exist for some sort of minute business function. Phone.js actually tracks texting, so it's not for actual telephones, it's for SMS messaging, which you can do without a telephone, so it's a stupid name. Kraken.js is about payment processing, and that's totally clear by its name. And I don't want to give you the wrong impression. JavaScript's very powerful. Node is amazing. Ember is absolutely fantastic. Angular is totally available. But, we can't just say because it has a JS on it, it's good. We need JavaScript. JavaScript is ubiquitous. There's no question about that. It's in everything that we do. Nonetheless, we can't say, oh, well, I'll just write another JavaScript framework for my specific need and I'm automatically awesome. There's so many other things out there. I could have touched on so many languages. There's so many things that you can look at, and some are new and some are old and some are newer versions of older things. Elixir is really just Ruby and Erlang mixed together in a big pot. It's pretty cool. Go, that's very popular. Rust has amazing things that you can do. And I highly recommend that you do, because again, it's not about the tool you use to do the job. It's about getting the job done. It's not about using the most hip and happening framework or language. It's about making sure your customers' needs are met and the people you work for, their needs are met. That's the important thing. So it's about evolution. Anyone who started out probably started out with one language, because there's no way you learn multiple languages at the same time. It's really a bad idea. But at the same time, I started off, I'm gonna admit a few things here about my age. I started out using Turbo Pascal 5.5. My first really big, not consulting job working for a company, I used Visual Fox Pro. And that doesn't tell you how old I am, that tells you how bad an idea that is. Since I've used PHP, Ruby, Perl, Java, JavaScript, like everything in between, whatever gets the job done. That's my whole form, whatever it takes. And that's why it's important as a coder to evolve. A great way to evolve is with communities. So I like this picture because I feel like this kind of demonstrates my earlier point. So we have a lot of folks, you go to meetups, you obviously go to conferences, you're here. If somehow you raised your hand somewhere at home, I didn't know we were streaming, so sorry about all the swear words. But this kind of demonstrates to me the tech community perfectly. We could call all the people that are red, we could call them Rubyists. We could call the blue people PHP, green for Go, that weird yellow-greenish thing, Java, sure, whatever. And this kind of demonstrates the fact that, yeah, everybody's in the tech community. Everybody in tech is in the community, except for we're all in our own communities that are somewhat kind of connected, but not really. And that's the problem. And it starts with this. These are things that people have actually said to me, and I'm gonna read them to you because these are I think they're ridiculous. So the first one is designers aren't developers. They shouldn't be at hardcore tech meetups. This actually happened at a meetup that I run, and I looked this person dead in the eye and I said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I've been coding for several years. The amount of years is not important. And I can make things that are functional, and they work. They work, and they're in Times New Roman with black text on a white background because I just want it to function. And then I turn to a designer and I say, make it actually look good so people want to use it. And they do some sort of magic that I don't understand that is definitely hardcore tech. and I can't do it. And that's fine, I accept the fact. I mean, my wife picks out my outfits because I can't also match colors and shit. But, you know, designing is just as difficult as developing. And I say designers are developers. There's nothing about hardcore, that's bullshit. This is one of my favorites. Sysadmins can live without developers, what do we need them for? So a while ago, I used to work at a cloud platform company, and one of my coworkers in support said this to me, and I was like, dude, think about what you just said. He's like, what? I just can't stand the developers are always so crazy. They always say this dumbest shit, and I'm just sick of it. I'm like, that's cool, so let's take away all the developers. Why do we need your servers? Why do we need a sysadmin? There's nothing to deploy. You take away all the developers and you don't have a job anymore either. There's no point to this. So that myth got quashed. Business folks just don't get developers. This is a tough one. I worked at IBM for a year. I'd gladly tell you that story over a whiskey. And it is interesting, especially in large enterprises, how business people think developers. Of course, we all live in basements and we all have beards. We live with our parents. We're disgusting people. And there are some business folks who still hold these ideas true, but that doesn't mean you should exclude them from the tech community. If anything, welcome them, hug them, bring them in. You know, unless they're tactile defensive and they might punch you, then don't hug them. But let them know what our world is like, and then maybe we can do away with those perceptions. Tech people are socially inept, all of them. This is my favorite. I actually had a dude say this in a meeting, a sales guy said this in a meeting to me a few weeks ago, and I was like, dude, what do I do for a living? He goes, you go and you speak at conferences. I was like, so that's social interaction. He's like, yeah, but I'm like, do you think I'm the only person who speaks at every one of these conferences I go to? No. Everybody gets together, and then there's beer, and people are hanging out and talking about different things. And it's not all just about code and tech. Sometimes it's about the fact they have lives and people that they care about. And you talk about that. We're not socially inept. But the only way to fix that is through cross-pollination. We did this, I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I do a lot of meetups there. And one of the things that we did is we started mixing our meetups. We started having a Ruby meetup with recruiters. We did the JavaScript meetup with the PHP meetup, and everybody always has a good time. We just set up 2 speakers, 1 from each camp, and we run with it. And then, you know, pizza and subs and beers, and everybody's happy because, you know what, you start to learn new perspectives, and that's really what it's all about. If you get stuck in that one hole, like that Wikipedia hole that I referenced earlier, you have nothing but blinders on. You're not learning anything. And if you're not learning anything, you're not progressing. And if we're not progressing, there's no way to make a super awesome tech community. And that's really what we're trying to do. That's our whole point. So let's get to the last part, open source and the enterprise. This is possibly the most, how many open source developers do we have in here? How many folks work at an enterprise company like IBM or Google or some shit like that? You're thinking about it, you're not sure. That's it. Basically, in the world today, the way it works is enterprise means you don't work at a startup. But also what a startup is, I could do a whole talk about what that means. But yeah, it's apples and oranges, right? They're just not the same thing, open source versus enterprise development. So we go back to this idea. You know, the Java guy who works obviously for a large scale company like Boeing or something like that, and the Ruby guy who makes shitty apps, which he shouldn't. And we kind of have this attitude that open source developers, like I said before, we live at home with our parents. We are trying to build like, you know, Linux packages that we can deploy, and then hopefully maybe someone on Patreon will give us enough money so we get enough, you know, food and litter for our 27 cats, and, you know, neck beards down to our knees because that's the way it works. Definitely no women because that's impossible. That's the concept of open source development that some people have in the enterprise world. And of course, enterprise developers, business, because we all think of enterprise developers as people in little gray cubes building little gray software for other people in little gray cubes, which seems a little bit redundant, but that's, you know, that's kind of the messed up perception that people have. And as much as this is one of my favorite pictures of all time, because, you know, like I said, I travel a lot and I love hearing business people talking on the phone loudly so you know how much business they're doing. It's my favorite. But it's not all like that if you're a developer. We need to get along. And what does that mean? Well, as open source developers, we should learn. We should find the value in organization, the value in a little bit of structure, not, you know, overbearing structure, not micromanagement, but the little bit of structure that helps a team get a little bit of discipline so that they can create what they're trying to create. And the enterprise developers can learn that, you know, coding is sometimes, it's a craft. There's a creativity there. It's an art form. There's lots of things that you can do within the code that express your beliefs or the way that you build things. And we should do it for the children. It's all about the children. So part of the point of this talk was to point out that there's flaws in logic. You know, we as people, we always inflate our own interests. What we're thinking about, what we talk about is much more important. It's all about talking over someone, and you're only listening to wait for them to stop speaking so you can make your point. And we have to end that. We have to communicate. We have to cross-pollinate. We have to make things better. And part of that is getting rid of images. So how many of you have seen a job posting that says, we're looking for a rock star ninja wizard that slings code, bruh, and loves ping pong and, knows how to hacky sack like there's no tomorrow? We've all seen this ad. Every single one. I'm not even gonna ask you to raise your hand. You've seen it. I've been at conferences where people have had it on like their stretch screens and post boards and stuff, and that's just ridiculous. So let's do away with this myth right here. There's no such things as wizards. If there was, I would totally be at Hogwarts right now. You're not a rock star unless you're in a room with about 4,000 people playing music and they're adoring you. So that's probably not happening. If it is, good for you. I will come see you. I hope you make good music. There are no ninjas. If there are, unfortunately, I can't see them. So if there are, I might be wrong. Please present yourself as a ninja later after the talk. But it's about being cool with each other. It's about being good. It's about working together and getting rid of these myths, rid of these urban legends that divide us, and creating a community that makes everything better. It's about being humans together. Thank you very much. I know we're a little pinched for time, so if anybody has questions, I'll be hanging out outside of this room. Feel free to come up and talk to me. I have some stickers and things, business cards, because business cards are awesome. But thank you very much. I appreciate you hanging out.